Fearing and pandering to optics is a self-defeating mindset for Jewish thought leaders. It's ego-dystonic in that what you really want to express, you have to suppress. Showing Hammerstein going to Qatar or Indonesia from Israel is what is happening and can happen. Also, there's really no such thing as intellectual property because all of our gifts and talents are given to us by Hashem. We can't have unity, light, and love if we hoard and take credit for our own expertise. That's wrong. For example, to be specific, how can we overcome the false optics of ubiquitous maps of quote-unquote Palestine in Christian Bibles? Well, by tackling ignorance through Jewish education, primarily educating Jews themselves, to rid them of the guilt and shame of miseducation, a lack of education, and breaking the mindset of appeasement and moving into a Jewish mindset of freedom, which is what Passover is about. Appeasement doesn't work, especially appeasement of our very own brutal enemy. No, we must take Christian Bibles and replace them with Hebrew Bibles. We must take evangelical end times books and replace them with Education Day every day without the consideration of optics, which is really shame and fear of living out a Jewish identity as we see fit in America, not what we are allowed as dhimmis under outdated Chrislam. Intellectual intimacy through truth-seeking means having the guts to own our own truth without the fear of optics, which is, in my experience and opinion, just a mentally oppressive euphemism for marketing. By worrying about optics, it subconsciously is admitting that we have doubt, fear, and generational self-esteem issues. Yea, the only place for enthroned optics is on Madison Avenue, Fifth Avenue, Park Avenue, and for weaponry. In the world of Jewish education, only the sensitivity to the truth matters. We must print books of Rabbi Isaiah in Hebrew and Yiddish to replace the Greek anti-Jewish Gospels. We must gather in Rome and demand our 6 million stolen Jewish treasures from the dead Pope. Immediately, the time to strike is now. We must not fear the gray wolves again. We must not fear the dynamics of leadership. The very fact that we feared leadership roles our whole lives is an indication that we were always leaders. We were just confused about being humble with being arrogant.